just gonna jump right into it. Isn't that right, Tom? Okay, we're just gonna jump right into it. Okay, Desiree is, will not be here tonight. Brent? Okay, those are on. He's working. So we're gonna go into this and, you know, do as much as we can. You know, we just gotta try to, you know, really get on this and look at things that we need fixing in our charter, you know. Because a lot of the stuff that we have, it's outdated. You know, Cleveland's grown a lot, things have changed. So, you know, let's just look at it. We got Scott over there. Oh, okay. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna, I guess you've all read over the few minutes that we had from July 16th. I need a motion to approve the minutes from July 16th, charter review meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the July 16th meeting.
Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? 0. 3-0. Okay, motion passed. Okay, now we'll go into our discussion of the city charter. Okay, Tom?
Yeah, so, starting with Article 1, form of government, and I have some ideas and some notes that I've made.
Okay.
But ultimately it's up to y'all. And like, I think probably what I and Scott are looking for is direction on the kind of changes y'all want. We can put together, you know, red lines, and then at the next meeting when we're talking about 4 through 6, we can kind of review the wording of those changes on 1 through 3 and make sure that it's in the right direction. And these can all be tweaked kind of as we get closer to a final recommendation. I didn't have a lot on 101 and 102. I've got some, I'd probably say there are minor tweaks in 103. Okay. Specifically, City Council may by ordinance annex territory lying adjacent to the city limits, and my thought is to strike that. Essentially, there have been some changes in the annexation laws to where you don't necessarily need to have the, it used to be the rule that you could only annex what you touch. So now they've got provisions set up where if you want to annex, for instance, some property that is in your ETJ that is not necessarily touching the city limits, where you can annex that property, you can annex the county road or the whatever road it connects to. And that's kind of how they get around a lot of what used to be the sharing the boundary requirement. This, it also specifically references chapter 43. There are it's really only 1 or 2 other provisions scattered throughout the code. My suggestion would be to change the language of and subject to only such procedural rules as may be described by chapter 43 of the local government code, just to not inconsistent with procedural rules prescribed by law for the cities. Basically make it a more general statement, less specified in 43. And one of the things I'm thinking of is in chapter 212, there is authority for a city to prescribe the manner and procedures for annexation under development. And there's been a lot of confusion among city attorneys that I talk to all the time. Do we still have to follow 43, or can we now just set whatever we want? And there's a whole lot of, well, let's just be safe and do it or whatever. But if there's 43 specified in the charter, then it isn't even a discussion. You have to do it under 43 also. And this is kind of a lot, you'll see this throughout some of the notes that I made, were just specific references to laws that either changed or
Okay, now, something that I had talked about and discussed. And, this is my 7th year council, 6 years council, and mayor. What it really, it's just my opinion, what has handicapped us is every year in May, we have an election. And you constantly get new people in positions. Okay, we can prioritize things that we want done now and working on different projects. Okay, in May, you get 3 other people, okay, and they don't want that project. I mean, it took us, what, 5 years for the fire station? We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You constantly getting new people in, and like I said, it's hard to achieve long-term goals with short-term leadership. You know, my suggestion would be adding another council member, number 1, okay, and number 2, change the term from 2 years to 3 years, okay, and make the mayor have the right to vote, be the tiebreaker, you know, because there have been instances, man, where the way we have it set up now, I just think we really have a hard time completing stuff and get stuff done. You have a council, okay, we're gonna give people raises, okay? Then you get another group in, no, we don't wanna do that. On the evidence room. Now that took, every year we go back and forth. We get 3 people that wanna do something, then we get new people on the council, but we don't wanna do it, you know? And I think in the long run, that will help the city if we get the 3-year terms, you know, and even turnover rates with employees, the city managers. When you changing out people, you know, every year, man, it's just, I think it really hinders the growth, you know, what we're trying to do. You know, I think we need to try to, you know, when you have a good unit, and keep that unit there as long as you can. Because when you start switching in new players, man, it just makes things hard, and it makes it frustrating. I mean, Scott, you got any words on that? Or?
No, I mean, I think that comes up in the next couple of sections of the next article. We talk about terms and the body and all that, but
Okay.
I think, you know, we can probably go in more detail into that situation. As far as the first 101, 102, 103, I think we're.
Okay, what's the next one, Tom?
Tommy, real quick.
Yeah.
But for 102, I don't know if this matters, but maybe because the majority of the cities in Liberty, but does it need to reference the other counties or no?
I don't think it hurt.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, which one would that be, Tom?
that'd be one,
Well,
two.
why we're Montgomery County and James and Sanville, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like all of our TDM paperwork and stuff like that through the state, we have to make sure that we list all 3 counties, because if we have if we're doing a declaration or something like that, we make sure that we declare every part of the city, no matter what county it's in. So every time we do that, we have to make sure we are including all 3 counties in the declaration and stuff like that. I think it's what Anita was touching on. Does that work?
No, I agree, and then the reference is in the title of the document. You know, truthfully, I would probably say that if they changed since the title, the title still encompasses what is in it. But like a lot of these changes, it's just as much important, just as important to avoid confusion
Right.
as it is to, you know. So I think it's a good change. The only other comment that I had on Article 1 was, and this could either be tagged on to the end of 103, or it could be in a new section 1.04. Essentially, so there's a provision for general law cities where if someone disannexes, then it doesn't alleviate a disannexing property from its pro rata share of the debt that the city has taken on in order to annex the net. So basically, the city obligates itself, takes out bonds or whatever to build a own water system. And then the person says, I want out. Well, they've still got to pay their pro rata share of the debt until that's satisfied. That is a explicit general law provision under state law. The common interpretation is it also would apply to homeless cities. If you have it in the charter, then it just avoids that ambiguity altogether. I think that's something to consider.
We gotta go best under just our boundaries, under that section, 102. Just a statement there.
Yeah, you could put it in 102 or 103.
103 is more of an extension of your boundary versus 102 is your boundary.
And I included sort of in my, and I apologize, I would have distributed this earlier, but I don't want anyone to get the idea that like, these are my red lines. Take it away, this is an open discussion and I'm here to facilitate. But, yeah, I had initially included this in a separate section called contraction boundaries for annexation. That just kind of makes a general rule that any area of the city may be disannexed pursuant to any procedure allowed by state law, and there exists in the corporate limits of the city territory suitable city management. This continues that territory by ordinance, following public hearing. Where is the hearing? Any territory so detached shall be liable for its pro rata share of the debts incurred while it was a part of the city, and the city shall continue to levy and collect taxes on property within said territory until all indebtedness is discharged. And this is usually, it's rare that this ever becomes an issue. It's just one of those belt and suspenders.
We don't mind the red line.
No, yeah, in fact, now that I think about it, I should have.
No, we don't mind that because, you just cleaning it up for us, you know? It's, a lot of this stuff been here for so long, man. It's good to clean it up. So the red line, that don't bother me at all.
I've got a few other things.
So Tommy, in that situation, if somebody de-annexes, we can charge, we would basically say, here's how much services you have for the debt service. Because I know that you could use that to offset then what we potentially would have to pay if they de-annex. Mary Ann had talked about, you may have to pay them part of the taxes that they paid for the services that you didn't provide to them for the last several years.
Right, like
So it almost wash it out, or?
yeah.
we've already spent $700,000 to run water and sewer to a property, and then they up and decide, yeah, we want out now. You know, that's a good protection for the city, as we've seen where we started having some issues, to start making sure that we're taking care of it at the same time, as we're trying to expand and improve services in the area and stuff like that.
Yeah, and where you see it play out a lot is when you have, like, let's say you've got a mud that builds this infrastructure, and, you know, the mud sort of lived its life, and they still have some embeddedness that people in that mud are paying off, then, and it gets brought into the city, or it doesn't alleviate. In fact, you usually see, there'll be a special provision either in the city about a different annual charge, different rate that is basically taxed to each of those properties, or the mud will continue in existence until all that debt is paid off. And it's the same principle. But if that's something that y'all are interested in, then, you know, I can put together kind of a cleaner,
Clean it up.
red line.
Y'all okay with that?
I think since that's such a big thing right now, with people trying to de-annex, and we've had several the last couple of years, and it would be good to have that in there, just for our protection.
We've had, what, about 3 or 4 of them here in the last 6 months. I mean, they coming out the woodwork, you know, on the end. That would be good if we could clean that up and protect us. Okay, here we go.
That's all I have on one.
Okay.
The only thing I had on two was just a very small, at the end of, I don't think it's in the red line here, no here. The very end of 202, all powers enumerated in articles, lists basically a whole bunch of articles that are now something different. And just kind of as a general rule, rather than listing specific articles that are subject to change, I think it would be a good idea to use the language that's already up in 201, beginning on the 4th line, midway through, and shall have all powers granted to cities by the Constitution, laws of the state, Texas, together with all powers in the state to carry into execution of all powers. So essentially, they exercise any powers authorized by law. And that way you take out references to statutes that are no longer, you know, in revised civil statutes, things like that, just, you know, state law. And that's more of a house cleaning deal. It's not substantive. It doesn't change any authority of the city. It just clarifies how they work. And that's really the only thing I have for section Article 2.
Section 3, that was knowledge.
Yeah, and that's kind of, that was a lot of what I was thinking on it. It basically just brings the city, so for Article 3, it brings the city in line to a more consistent home rule benefit. So in general law cities, mayor doesn't vote unless there's a tie, and that's in the charter is essentially a carryover from the city's general law. out of its own rule. It's common that you see cities expand the number of members of council, give me the right vote. And one of the drivers of that is sitting right over there, not personally, but because you have a city manager form of government. So you have two CEOs in a way, under that way.
Jeff, what you think?
Well, I was trying to go through the language when you said, you know, the mayor should have the right to vote, and I guess I was looking at the existing, as it stands right now, you only get to vote in the event of a tie?
Yeah, correct. Believe it or not.
Wow. No, I think that language needs to be in there, that you should have the ability to vote on a matter. Period. Tommy, again, because I wasn't here last month, you've thrown two terms at me: general rule or general law city, and then home.
Yeah, and let me, and by the way, I just caught it. Could be in the description. It's caught a big thing that you cut out when you mentioned back after the tie, sentence on living tie. So general law city is a city that is, and these numbers aren't hard numbers because cities can form into different special divisions and operational. But generally speaking, a general law city is less than 5,000, and when they incorporate under the general law stuff. And I guess the best way to think about that is general law cities are administratively, in terms of their authority, closer to counties. Counties have only the authority the statutes give them, no more. And when a general law city looks at the statute, they look for something that says you may do this. A home rule city, adopting a charter, you're given under the state constitution full power of self-government. So a general law city looks at the statutes and says, is there anything that says we can't do it? Or we preempted by state law? And so now, but to convert from general law to home rule, you have to have an election, which was done, was that 2000? Was it in 2000 or was it in the 90s? Yeah. But it was, at some point it was done, and that gives the city really broad authority to adopt laws, rules, basically just to fully regulate the community. It also has the authority to adopt different structures of government and things like that. But general law cities, they are very specific. You have the city manager form of government, and all these things have to be explicitly adopted. And that's kind of what's the leftover in making this transition. And it's not uncommon. A lot of times you see a home rule city when they make that conversion. The conversion itself is a very big deal. So they try to minimize the burden by we're going to keep the same structure and we're going to transition. And at some point, the city becomes too big for that structure. And that's, I think, what a lot of what we see is that after a while, you'll have them switch from the 5 council members to 6 with the mayor voting, because administratively it's grown out of it. It's better to have that happen and make that change before it becomes critical, which is, I think, what we'd be doing here. It's not, I don't know that it is absolutely everything's going to fall apart if it doesn't, but it's on, this is the size of the city now. I think that change should happen. And if you're holding an election, waiting on the outcome of the election, when you need to have it happen right at the moment, then it's a tough position. This is a good position.
So are we a general law city or a home rule city at the moment?
I should have answered the easiest question right off the bat.
And I didn't actually ask it that way, so.
And by don't ever hesitate to cut me off. I'll just go rambling in one direction. Yeah, so the city of Cleveland is home.
Okay.
Surprisingly, the mayor pro tem Conroe. And Conroe has mayor that's low even. That's shocking. give it a shot. And I think they're going through the process of changing theirs also, you know. But it just, it's, the way we have it now, it's really, really hard to do, you know, anything. Because a lot of the capital projects, you know, that we have and making plans for and you study changing and, you know, it's real hard. It's real hard. And I think that will help, keeping employees, city managers, city secretaries, you know, just that stable, you know, stability, you know.
I guess, I mean, I did talk to Councilman McWaters this morning when he said he wasn't going to attend tonight. And he referred to, you know, one of the things that, because I asked him, is there anything that you want to talk about tonight that you're not going to be, like a share? He's like, the one thing that he brought up was this idea of the 3-year term, the mayor, adding a council person, you know, and his biggest thing is that he's kind of neutral at this point. He's not opposed to leaving it, he's not opposed to changing it, but he just wants to make sure that if we recommend this, that we've got the right justification and good reasons for making those changes. And so, you know, going from potentially from a 5-member to a 6-member, you know, is that, what's the reason for that? You know, adding the vote for the mayor to be able to vote. You know, if the mayor can vote, does that require us to have a 6th person or not require us? He just wants us to make sure that we talk about all those different facets to make sure that we're doing it, and if we're going to recommend that, to have a good reason and justification for it, not just be doing it just to be doing it, you know. And so I just kind of want to mention that as we're looking at these things here, you know, if we allow the mayor to vote, which is a good thing, you know, does that require anything? Because now if we leave it the way it is, you have 5 council and the mayor. Now you're creating a potential for a tie vote on a regular basis, and there is no tiebreaker at this point. So does that by itself, saying yes, we think that the mayor should be able to vote, you know, as the figurehead of the council and the leader of the council should have the ability to have that vote and be able to input every single vote and not just on a tiebreaker. If so, then that may require us to have an additional council person so that we don't have a situation where on every vote you potentially have a tie. You know, and that could be a good reason and justification, you know.
And also, like I say, it's very frustrating, you know, when you're trying to get stuff done. It takes us, I mean, a little flash play. Man, we could have got that done in one term. You know, we fumbled around with that for 3 or 4 years. You know, and the fire station, you know, and then the evidence, you know, it's just, we move slow, you know, we growing, you know.
I think it goes back to the 2 and 3 year term also. If you're adding, because right now, the way it sits is you've got 3 and 3 every other year, but then 1 year when the mayor's running, it's really almost like you're voting for 2 voters at that point, because you got 2 council members that vote for Mayor King, but he's the figurehead, but he's part of that half. But every other year, half your council is up for election, which goes back to your consistency and having people here or elected. So then that leads you to the 3-year term, you know. But if you did 3-year terms, you still, you know, is that because you want to, you know, obviously, you know, if you have 7 or 6, you know, how do you split that 3 and 4, and then you have 1 year you don't have election, or do you have to go when you have a 3 years? That means you have to go 2, 2, and 3 to have that 7-year rotation.
Well, and that's something that I thought, and I for a while, I thought, yeah, maybe I'll put that here. My gut initially was to put it in Article 8, there's an election article, and essentially have a section that defines the transition. You know, because you're not gonna be on every other year, you're either gonna be one off, or you're gonna be 2, 3, 2, or 3, 2, 2, whichever combination. But kind of setting how that transition will work, and truthfully, it's absolutely council play. I mean, it could be done as, you could have, you know, the initial election for a, you know, what would be a partial term of the 3-year terms, with the full 3-year term beginning on a certain date. It could be done it can be done at the same time as the charter election. Which I generally think if you're gonna add the mayor voting, you should probably do that extra council member at the same time, because then you could be left with, you know, an even number on the council for an extended period, and let's be honest, for this council, most everyone gets along. I don't know that it'd be an issue, but you never know.
It only takes one May, and the council could change at this point, and now you may have a situation where you have a divided council, half and half, and you have a tie on a regular basis.
The only hard rule to anything is essentially if someone is currently elected to a position, you couldn't cut that term short. But the next person elected, you could be abbreviated, you could provide for essentially a transition. And we'd have to look at, you know, how that makes sense.
So if you were to do, let's say we were to have this on the May election coming up, and you have a May election, could that be if it gets approved a 3-year, they become a 3-year term? Or would it have to be for a 2-year term, and if it changes, the following election would start the 3-year term?
It could be done either way. You could do a 3-year term. I think the new council position would need to be a 3-year term. I mean, you can have an election for a position running concurrent with the charter amendment. So you could do the council position that was created, that election can actually happen at the same time. For some people, their theory is it's a good idea if you're creating a council position and with charter amendments to have all that happen at the same time. Because you get into essentially there's rules about the city lobbying for ballot measures, you know. For instance, the city couldn't put out a statement for or against the constitutional amendment that we all about, because of certain electioneering. And whether a city could do the same thing about charter amendments, you know, my instinct is to play cautious on that. That said, there is nothing that would prohibit someone who's running for a position that will be created by a charter amendment for also expressing support for the charter. So it sort of helps in getting the charter amendment message out there as well. In truth, I do think candidates could push for the charter amendment. They just need to be careful about doing it from official city account versus candidate.
So, for example, this May, that we potentially could have the charter on, would also be positions 1, 2, and the mayor, right? So those 3 potentially could be for 3-year terms if the charter passes.
Right.
But then you also have to have a new council person, right?
Right, yeah.
That would be running, and would only be elected if the charter passes.
Correct.
If the charter doesn't pass with adding another person, then they wouldn't obviously, I mean, even though they won the election on that position, they wouldn't actually become a council member if they failed.
That's right.
But then you'd end up having,
That's
but then you end up having 3 people and a 4th one on a 3-year term. So then do you make this one a 2-year term, or the new person on 1 year, and then they can do a 3-year the following year?
right.
And then they have to run 2 years in a row.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it, to be honest with you.
Then they gotta run 2 years in a row.
Right.
And here's the funny part about all this. I would say that the current language in the charter, other charters I've looked at, it's less complicated for this issue than often, because where you get really messy in terms of how all this works is when you've got the city, for instance, divided into districts, and you have the elections per district, and you're moving that off. Everyone is elected at large. There's also a lot of requirements related to terms of office, so that once you go greater than 2-year terms of office, there are constitutional requirements that kick in terms of like, resign to run, different things, and those are actually already adopted in the city's charter. So there's nothing new that would be added in terms of members of council and in terms of, rules they would have to follow. That's already all in there. It's just figuring out that election schedule to get you on that new 3-year cycle. And I'm trying to think offhand if I know any cities that have an off specific election off year. I can't think of any. If you've heard of it.
Well, that was pretty much, if you did that, that was pretty much compared to school fees. I think they have 7 board members. They have 7. So that's basically what we're doing.
3-year term, and maybe
Yeah. 3 and 4, 3 1 year, 4 the next year.
and then they have 1 year off.
Wait a minute. No, I think they split that up. It's an election every year. I think they split it up in 2 1 year, 2 the next year, 3 the next year. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Which that's the way it will be here.
Yeah.
Eventually 2, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6 with the mayor. The mayor, 1, 2, I'll be good. And what are y'all thinking? Three-year terms?
I guess my question would be, I understand the advantages. What are the disadvantages of not doing this? To me, it seems like we should do it. I guess, again, not knowing exactly how municipalities work, I sort of assumed the mayor had a vote. So it's interesting to see that right now, the only vote is in the event of a tie, which means statistically, how often is that going to happen? And I do agree with the mayor on the 3-year terms. At least I hope that would move some of these decisions along a little bit quicker. Short time that I've been around, I've been staggered at, wait a minute, this is the 5th year we're discussing this and doing another study on it. I mean, can't we do a yes or no right now? I mean, so, unless someone can give me a hard disadvantage, I don't know why we wouldn't want to adopt that language. And that said, I do understand, man, for the voting going forward, it's going to make it, a little bit complicated. I mean, okay, you're on a 2-year term, sorry, the person sitting next to you is on 3-year, and, we'll try to work out, the nuances of that. But like I said, unless someone can show me a clear-cut, hard disadvantage, I don't know why we wouldn't want to adopt that language.
Chuck, you remember the other night at the PDC
Yeah, it was a ETJ report
Yeah.
from '09.
From '09.
And, you know, in that one, it was recommending that we do
One group wanted
the
to-
same thing we did that night in adopting a professional marketing branding company to address, you know, what are we doing with the city? You know, so, you know, that was obviously 14, 15 years
That's
ago.
a perfect example, you know, you spend money to, get those surveys. Then once you get them, you got elected, oh, okay, we're gonna spend the money on
Right,
something else.
yeah.
And they put it in the closet and 15 years later,
Yeah.
we behind. I mean, we should have done that on time. So it's just, but I don't know how the public, I don't know how they would take it, but, from where I'm sitting, it's just hard to get stuff done, get projects done, when you start changing up. And we went through, let's see, we went through like 4 city managers. What was that lady's name? City manager?
Kelly?
Kelly McDonald?
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly McDonald, Bobby Kennedy, Stacy Williams. Then we had the interim. Okay, now we got Scott. Got everything going good. We got the EDC set up. We got the airfield. We gaining momentum. Okay, but we got an election in Monday. Okay, now. Well, you might get another, there's a good chance that the council will stay, 3 people will stay, but that's not guaranteed. So you might get 3 other people that say, well, wait a minute, we don't like the way y'all doing this, we're gonna do it another way. And everything that we gain would be just like that survey from 2009, it gets put back in the closet. And it's very frustrating, from where I'm sitting, it's just frustrating to see the progress, that we've made, and there's a chance though that, that might get changed.
And then my question is, and I think maybe I need this for clarification, in order for us to add this council member, give the mayor the right to vote, this charter still has to be voted on, correct?
Correct.
So I guess my thinking is, I'm not so concerned about the disadvantage. I'm more concerned of how is this going to be shared with the community? Because even though we may think this is a good idea, if we don't get this through the community, none of this is gonna happen. So my question is, how are we gonna market this? Because I've never voted in Cleveland, so I don't know if we just, and I don't mean to come off as being disrespectful, do we just throw it on the wall and see what sticks? Is that how the voters look, or are the voters really inquiring about what does this mean? Are they actually reading this charter to see that we've changed the language? Do they even know that we're a home rule, city? I think that we're bringing forward a lot of information that we are requiring the voters to be able to solve for us. So I think the idea is great. I think it would not be a bad idea to add more momentum to the board. But my biggest concern is it still has to be approved by individuals that are not in this room, that are not listening to these conversations. And if I look at the history, when I think about a bond for Cleveland, ISD, it only takes a few people to say, this, and this is gonna happen. So how are we as a group going to lead the work to get the voters to understand that this is actually to benefit them without costing them any money? And then the impact of that positivity of us doing this. And I think that's where I'm sitting here really contemplating, how are you gonna sell this when big things don't pass here?
Well, I mean, Tony could probably elaborate a little bit more, but, I mean, the reason and the purpose of this group is to make a recommendation to the council. So you will review, make recommendations, and suggestions, and officially vote on a recommendation to the council. That recommendation will be taken to the council, which they will officially accept.
Okay.
And then it's gonna be up to the council to decide what, if any or all of those recommendations were going to go to the ballot in May, or the following May. But I mean, they'll accept them, but then they've got to make that determination. Once that is done, let's say they decide that they're gonna put it on the ballot for next May to be at the election, then we would have to work with our legal to really, I mean, because there's certain things that we can put information out. We cannot campaign for or against. You know this in the school district. You can't campaign or try to promote, but we gotta get that information out. And so we'll be working with him, the Attorney General's office, making sure that our material, our information that we can produce and that we can put out to our citizens and give them the information. And then I'm sure myself, the mayor, and probably others will be going to all these different groups, you know, possibly going to churches and Rotary clubs and all these different groups, Lions Club and all of them, letting them know what this ballot is. Again, providing information, because we can't lean on one way or the other.
Sure.
It would just be, here is what would happen if this passes, you know, and then be able to answer questions, you know, as those questions come in. So it's a long process, but starting that process is with this committee, going through the charter and identifying what areas need to be changed. Because then you gotta go back and say, well, you know, at some point you'll look at, okay, we've got 50 recommendations, you know. Can that be combined into one or two, or maybe five, or maybe we have to list all 50 different ones because they can't really be grouped together. So that's something we will have to work on later, and then we'll figure out from the council which ones they actually wanna, because they may say, well, this one's just grammatical, we don't need to change this one, and this one may not be, but these are significant, we need to take these to the voters. And then on those, we try to figure out how to combine them.
And it's a good question and a good point, because that's the calculus that always happens. Because a charter amendment is never, you know, like, I'm voting in favor of amending the charter. The ballot measure that you're voting for or against is going to be almost for each individual charter. Now, it's not. For instance, if you're adding, you can group like we're adding commas, we're making non-substantive divisions like that. Those are getting easier to group together, but you know, of what we've talked about, I guess, and we're just to the first part of Article 3, I guess, six ballot measures. And so, but the reason, so the marketing, getting that word out there is the name of the game. Like that's what, and the good news is, state law requires that you basically send voters all the, you know, the language, like the, you know, caption, what you're actually going to do. Because I think most people, when they look at the changes that are being made,
That's it.
yeah.
But I think it's also a challenge, because just like, you know, we're talking about, we're having a meeting, we're having these big discussions amongst all of us to try to understand and find out what is best to even recommend, right? Somebody getting a pamphlet or an information sheet at home in the mail, seeing what the language is, or currently is, and what it, you know, was being recommended to be changed to, they may go, what is this about? I mean, I have no understanding whatsoever, because we can sit here and talk about it, but them at home reading it going, this doesn't make any sense to me, what is this doing, you know? And that's the big challenge.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
I mean, so for, I guess 3.1, just to recap, we're looking at adding the mayor to vote, adding an additional seat and maintaining the 3-year term.
Did I hear 4 years?
4 years, nah.
I was saying, that's open too. You can't go higher than 4, but you can go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think it will have a good chance to be accepted. And that's basically the same format that the school district has. You know, and with the growth, you know, it calls for, you know, we need all the help we can get, really. And, you know, another thing, I mean, it just won't be for me as the mayor or for the council, you know, it's for the future mayors, future council, you know, down the road, you know, it'll make things, give them a better advantage, you know, getting things done.
Tommy, what's the material difference between 302 and 303? Is 303 more like decorum and like code of conduct? Or
303 is, so if you have a situation come up to where there's an argument that someone is or isn't qualified to run for office, meaning they don't sort of meet the basic state law requirements that are in 302, that the initial judge of that is one of the city council. And essentially, which I think the practical effect is, when if it's ever challenged in court, the court is going to look at it as an abuse of discretion, which means it's much harder to overturn than if it was, you know, if there was a question as to who should have made that decision in the first instance. What you run into a lot of times is, not in home rule cities where they have a provision like this, you'll see maybe it was, a determination was made on an administrative level, and it was challenged, and the court's just gonna look at it like it was the first time they're looking at a brand new issue, and it was thumbs up, thumbs down, whether that was right or wrong. The city council has the right to determine those qualifications. It can err on whatever side it wants to, and the court has to respect that. Essentially that, it has to respect council's discretion in making that decision. Like they say, the court can come in and tell you, you have to do something state law requires you to do. The court can't come in and tell you what your discretion has to be. They can't tell you who to appoint, only that you got to appoint someone. They can't tell you, what to do, only that you have to do. This kind of gets more to the discretion part of that analysis. Have I made it more confusing?
no. Is this for like censorship? Like, not right now.
No. It's just more for, so like if there is a, I'll give you an example. If there is a question as to So, probably the easiest way to think about it, city council makes the first decision in terms of how it interprets its laws. So it's like if the council, maybe if there's some vague wording somewhere, or the facts seem vague, the council will make that determination based on how they've always interpreted that one to be, and there's value to what the media gives to that. Decade court could come in and do almost any number of things. See it happen. This is kind of one of those, the first interpretation of your own rules is you. And that's, it needs to be that way. Because otherwise, you have folks that, if you've been doing something one way for 30 years, because you read something some way in the charter, and someone else reads it and says, no, I would read it that way if there was a comma or semicolon there, and that's what are we talking about? You know, this way, you know, it's kind of, it buttons up that issue.
Going back to 3.01, you know, under C, you know, no person shall be elected to more than 3 consecutive regular 2-year terms. So if we're changing that, do we want to keep it 3 terms? Do we want to, if that's 9 years, basically she could serve? Can you eliminate terms? Let the voters make that decision?
Well, and that's, you know, I initially had crossed out 2-year in that, so it would just be regular terms, but really, term limits is, can be done anyway. I've got a couple sample provisions that I like, those all hinge on years rather than terms. Because the question always comes in, well, can someone run for a different office? Or, because, you know, for instance, in Cleveland, everything's at large, so could you run for a different council position without a separate term? Would that count? Would the council member and mayor terms count together? They count separate? You know, these are all things that, you know, generally speaking, get resolved with charter amendments after they've come up a number of times and there were arguments about it. I think it's easier to do it in years, but then again, I don't know if that's easier to switch with this one, because you're going to have inconsistencies with terms, and truthfully, these are, you know, there isn't that probably calculus.
Well, right now you're limiting them to years. Right now they're limited to 6 years, 3 2-year terms. You know, so if you go to a 3-year term, that would be 2 terms instead of the 3. But then you don't have to limit them at all. I mean, you could let that be the voters, and you could run until you get voted off. So I mean, you've got the 2 to consider, but then, you know,
You can also.
what was the reason the 3-year for 2 terms? You know, is that reason still justified? I mean, that's kind of back to the committee. What do y'all think? It needs to be changed for sure if we change the terms, but does it say 3 terms? Or was it the reason was 6 years and we want to keep it at 6 years, which means it's 2 terms at 3 years? Or is there no reason to not just remove that and it's just the voters will remove you when they're ready to remove you from your seat?
That's a tough one.
And it could be anywhere in between.
Right.
You know, I mean, you could say cannot serve more than 12 years total, no matter what position you serve on council, without taking 1 term off or 1 year off. I mean, there's different ways cities do it differently. I don't know what the intent was when the charter went this way, except for that may be the way the state had it. A lot of what we have here is the same as what the state has as a general law city that didn't get changed. Most cities will do a lot of this changes when they go from general law to home rule. We kept a lot of the home rule. This may be one of those things that was kept from the home rule situation and not changed upon when they made that change.
And I'll tell you, I've seen term limit provisions that are longer than any other thing in the charter. Any other articles entirely, because they'll get into the weeds of what is consecutive terms. That presumes there must be some sort of break. How long does that break have to be? Is it
I think it's a year.
Is it, and could you define it as more than a year? Could you define it as a month? Is it like you can essentially you can construct it however you want to construct it to make it work for whatever makes sense. I don't know that it makes sense to get really in the weeds on all the specifics, because you end up, you'll end up struggling with them for, I mean, if someone's got, you know, a certain number of years left on the term, whatever, you'll struggle with it longer than you would have just been in place if they had an extra term or something.
But I mean, I'm also know, you know, I've known mayors and councils, I mean, I was talking with someone last week who served for 18, 20 years as mayor. You know, if you've got a great mayor, a great council person, and they're serving and doing a great job, want to continue to serve, why do you force them off? You know, you can see both sides, you know, and so.
Mayor Wood has been there 24 years.
Yep. Mhm.
Honestly, I work with the guy, both retired now, but he's been the mayor of Wood for 24 years. I don't know how he does it.
But that's in a situation where there's no term limit.
Well, me, my personal opinion, I would say, you know, just leave the terms, you know, the same, you know, just change the 2 from a 3. You know, by that way, and, you know, sometimes it's good to, you know, bring younger blood in, you know, keep it fresh. But after 3 terms, you know, that's 9 years. I mean, but that's just my opinion. Okay, Chuck, how do you feel about those terms?
I hate to say this, but honestly, I don't think I've got an opinion one way or the other on. Yeah, no, sorry, I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Okay, Ms. Tanya?
I guess if we stand in solidarity with you and you're talking of the consistent turnover, then I would say 3 and 3. So that way you can create an opportunity for some sustainability in getting projects done. Because that's what I heard initially. It's like every other year you're turning over. And so it'll eliminate the opportunity for agendas to be pushed in a 2-year window where you become stagnant. But it also gives the council itself a window of time to get something done. Because 2 years is not that long. When you're thinking about pushing city politics or city agendas or city, or whatever it may be, it's just not a long time. And so I personally think either you remove the terms, which is one of your recommendations, or you make it 3 and 3. I think 2 puts you back in the same box that you're currently in, where you're being suppressed because you're constantly changing.
We're getting some good feedback.
And by the way, I removed the regular 2-year terms only because to me, it looked like that was the provision of defining just the general length of terms. And so that was why I put it up there and took it out. That you can keep them in there, moving to 3 years, specify total number of years.
Yeah, 3 consecutive 3-year terms.
Mayor, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Under 3.2, everybody else probably knows the answer in the room but me. I just want to clarify. Where you have the red line, shall satisfy any other eligible requirements, and then it's marked out, shall not be indebted to the city. I know that we've had some folks in the past, I've been here for a while, we've had some folks in the past that have been indebted to the city. I'm just concerned that if you take that out, it's like, oh, nothing says that we have to pay our bills and catch up on some were water bills and some were bank taxes and stuff like that. And I don't mean like 1 month water bills, it was a few properties and quite a bit. So whether the indebtedness is still covered underneath where the way he has it spelled out much more eloquently than just make sure they're not in debt, and just make sure that that's still covered.
You know something?
Well, the problem
Protect the
is,
city.
That's a good, now Scott, we kind of,
well, that's the problem. We ran into this not too long ago.
we had
That, we had somebody
Surprising.
running that had some indebtedness, but
yeah.
we were told that you cannot legally keep them from running or serving at a council because of indebtedness.
Oh,
So the state has changed the
That's right.
the parameters, and
And
you no
that's
longer.
like, that's, I know it's been an issue for many years, different times, so.
So there's been some cases on the federal level and state courts that basically held that to be unconstitutional because it limits the pool of candidates. And the addition there, there was another provision that was added about whether if there was certain convictions would prohibit a candidate, and it kind of becomes that issue of, how often do we want to amend the charter to put the current laws in it? And I think, 21 years, 12 months, that's stayed consistency, that's been there forever. Adding the catch-all provision, otherwise qualified under state law, is, always gives you what you need depending on, we don't want to have to change the laws as frequently as the legislature does. They act like it's their job to do it. Hey.
3.04.
I'm not touching that one.
I'm not kidding when I say that may be the biggest, the biggest
It's
controversial issue
kind of
on here.
funny. It's really funny. People think that the mayor gets paid all this money. And they think the council gets paid money. I mean, but the stipend, I call it a stipend, okay? It's kind of funny. But then again, some cities our size don't pay anything. School board don't pay anything, But what I look at though, the last few years, we got younger people coming in, and say at council, $25 a month. You got the young people, they got children, you got to pay babysitter, and you get $25 a month. And, now, as a council person, as a mayor, take up a lot of time. I mean, but at the end of the day, I don't really want to touch that. I just go with the $50 a month. It's kind of funny, man. I think it was at a basketball game, and my daughter was sitting with this lady, and she didn't know the lady didn't know her. And something was going wrong with the PA system. And the lady said, well, somebody need to call that mayor, and all that money he making, I know we can have a better PA system. And my daughter goes, first of all, the mayor don't really get paid anything. And second of all, you need to talk to the school board. But it's really funny though, people think, but man, I'm good. I did 15 years on the school board for nothing. You gotta really want it. But for the younger people coming up, I think they would need to change that. And especially when my time is up and done here, I really think though they need to change that. you know.
Okay, so I'm willing to take a stab at this.
Go ahead.
So, welcome to the group. So my question is, I understand that money is always a sensitive topic, especially for you to be approaching a subject about your own salary. So my question is there room in the budget to increase this amount? Or, I mean, let's just call the elephant in the room. Is there money to increase this? I guess that's my first question. Because if there is money to increase it, then why don't we take that into consideration? I mean, when you think about, I just moved here, so I'm only speaking for my 90-day window. However, but, oh yeah, you're a little, oh, okay, you've been you're a veteran. So, with my 3 months of being here, and I look at just the amount of storms that we've had, and the amount of energy and responsibility and expectations that has been placed on this group of individuals, including yourself, and I don't know if you draw a salary, and that really is not my question, but if there's a possibility that we can change this compensation level, because I think about even the quality of the people that are on the board, you might change the quality of the people. You may bring a different group to the table who may say, oh, I'm willing to do this for $1,000. Not saying that our board is not adequate, because I don't know any of them, but you get what you pay for. So if you're gonna pay me $25 a month, you're gonna get a quality candidate for $25 a month. If you wanna bring things, and if you want the city to grow with the people here, then you gotta bring something here in compensation. I mean, nobody in this room works for free. Theoretically, we don't. I know we all on salary, but we don't work for free. Because at any moment that Cleveland stops giving me my check, I'm not showing up. I love the kids, I do, but I'm not going to show up. Let's just be honest. So I think that if there's an opportunity for us to increase the money, if there's money to be had, then I think we need to take this into consideration.
I mean, yes, we have a tight budget, we operate on a very tight budget, but, I mean, you're talking minimal amount of money that, you know, if this was a priority, then yes, that would be something that we would have to budget for going forward. You know, and if it's $1,000 for the council, $1,500 for the mayor, whatever, I mean, that would be something that we would find the money. You're not talking a lot of money.
Right.
Even at 7 council members, I
Yeah,
mean.
but, you know, sometimes in the last few years, you know, we got a young lady with 2 kids, you know, school teacher, you know, a coach, and she comes to the meeting, you know, she gotta pay somebody to babysit, and that little $25, man, you know what I'm saying? You know, it takes a lot of time, and you don't get paid, but then again, when you take this job, you know, you gotta really want it, and your heart gotta be in it, because if you don't, you're gonna wash out, you know, you're not gonna. But I think it would, just like Ms. Tanya was saying, it'll bring in better quality, you know, people. The people that we have now on the council, you know, they like lifers, you know, like, they've been here. I think we got one that's, you know, kind of new here, but, you know, but in the past, you know, we tell where you at on that, bro. Talk to me.
I guess I was a little surprised that it was that low.
Man, I'll make the big bucks. I'm taking care of it.
You know, I agree with Tanya. I think we need to at least discuss it. I don't know what the other surrounding cities are paying. I mean, I would hope that we are at least the equivalent of that. And I realize it's going to differ on size of city, population, and so forth. But yeah, I didn't really have a number in mind, but figure it's more than $600.
Mayor, do you remember the last time we got an increase, or y'all, not us, but y'all got an increase? Scott, do you know?
Honestly, Richard,
I mean, there's no update on this section, so it's probably never been updated.
he was telling me that years ago, I think they paid more. Okay, but they decided to cut it. But, from where I'm sitting though, man, it'll be hard for me to get out there, you know, say, hey, look, man, I need more money, I do it for, but going forward though, once I'm finished, I think the person that sits here, the people that's sitting up here, need a little more money.
Because Chief and I were talking, and I could be completely wrong, but it seems like back when Miss Kelly was here,
Yeah,
it was less than even what's on there now.
yeah.
And they did an increase when she was here, and like I said, that's been 5 council, or 5 city managers ago, so it wasn't a big increase, but it was a little bit more. So it has been a while just from that, but.
Well, and the provision contemplates changing it by ordinance, essentially, from time to time. So, the option would be not to raise or increase it, just take out the specific numbers and say council sets it by ordinance. You still have the provision where it wouldn't apply to the current terms.
Okay, now hold on, repeat that again.
He's trying to make it easier for you.
No, yeah, repeat that. Keep talking.
Shall be 300, the annual salary of the mayor shall be 600 until changed by ordinance. It shall not be increased during the current term of council, member enacting such ordinance.
Okay, change by ordinance.
I would say, or a suggestion maybe, the annual salary of the council members and the annual salary of the mayor shall be set by ordinance, but shall not be increased in the current term of the council member or mayor enacting such ordinance. Because the other thing too is if the mayor, if you're switching over to mayor has a vote, so essentially the mayor is a council member in all respects. You may want to have those two numbers closer together. You may want to have those two numbers further apart. Nothing can change the fact that while in the mayor, when disaster happens, it's one person who signs those declarations. But that leaves council flexibility to sort of make that adjustment to see what works. Like maybe they can raise it and it's not helpful, they want to put it back down. Or they can lower it if they feel that we have adjustments.
Say 10 years ago, now, responsibility of a council person and mayor is a lot more. We growing, and we spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of phone calls. Me and Scott, we talking, every day, every other day. It's always something, and the same with the council. You get your packet on Thursday for the meeting. Man, you gotta go over that stuff. And it takes time. I'm sitting there on the iPad. I wake up in the middle of the night. My wife said, man, will you leave that city a month? But it's quiet, and I just can just sit there and read. It's peaceful, but it takes a lot of time, man. But as far as sitting a dollar amount on that, man, I don't know. I mean, I'm good at either way. But for the younger people, man, it'll.
Mayor, with all respect to you and your position, I think we're making this salary based on the title, the mayor. I don't want you to, because I hear what you're saying, and I know you're just being humble, but I think that we're not talking about Mayor Lee, we're talking about the mayor.
Okay.
And if we separate the person from the title, then it's easier for us to have this conversation, because then it's not personal.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not talking about Mary Lou. We're saying, how much are we going to allocate for that position? And it may be the way the attorney read it, the language is set by council. But as we continue to grow, you're gonna have to have individuals that are gonna be equipped to be able to handle this role of the mayor.
Well, the good thing about what Tommy read, I mean, the council has the authority to change it, but none of the ones that voted for that change get to take advantage of it.
Benefit from it.
So, you know, the mayor may give it, you know, they may go up to $1,500 or something, but he won't be able to take advantage of it. The person that fills in after him will be able to do it. But it won't benefit him or any of the council members here. They wouldn't be able to take advantage of it, just the one that would follow them. So that's, but it's up to the council to set that rate. And, I mean, this rate's been here for a long time, and $300 and $600 doesn't do much when gas is $4 a gallon.
I'm trying to think of any provision in any law I've ever read that involves a specific dollar amount of age as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it never happens. But I'm not blind to that. This is, I mean, of all the things that we're talking about, charter amendment, this is usually on every list. It's, yeah, being communicated, so.
Well, the council has to authorize it, they can't take advantage of it, it wouldn't be, you know. Every year they can change it, but
Okay,
they don't do it.
now, would it be for that term, or would it be on the tenure? That you won't be able, like if you raise it, would it be for that, for the term you serve? Or would it be
It says current term,
current term?
not, unless that yours changed, the currently the way it says, to not be increased during the current term. So, I mean, in theory, once your term is up, if you get reelected, then you can take advantage of it after that term is over.
Well, we still got some time on this, a couple more meetings. I'm just gonna get some feedback, kind of kick it around.
Put a note there to come back to that one later.
No, yeah, well, I'll tell you, it'll be as we go through this, it'll kind of draft of everything that I feel like I'm hearing. And I hope y'all cut it up. I've never married anything I put on the page. And then sort of, okay, we look at it and there'll be plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, I just wanna, talk to some people and just kind of get some feedback.
On a lighter note, Emilio, I have a new item that I'd like to go on the agenda, EDC, please.
Compensation for board members. But
You never heard of it.
he went on there, there's a friend of mine that serves on this, board over in Liberty, I forgot the board. They get $150 a meeting, you know what I'm saying? And they have at least one meeting a month. Sometimes, in certain cases, they might have two. But it's $150 a meeting. And, me, instead of $50 a month or $25 a month, just say $50 a week, because it just takes up a lot of time, like I said. And whoever follows me, I just hope that they, really have the energy to just put in the time, because back in the day, you show up at a monthly meeting and the rest of the time, but now you gotta be involved, you gotta be out there, in the community, and it just takes a lot. So, but I'm gonna get some feedback on that though, before we say it.
Does council currently have like any kind of reimbursement policy that happens on expenses? Because essentially that type of deal
Yeah.
functions more like a reimbursement deal, and in actuality it can be better,
Yeah.
because that is easier to
We do,
digest.
I mean, the city pays for like,
Yeah.
they're going to conferences and their meals.
Pay
and-
mileage.
And their mileage, you know, they have to go to conferences and trainings and different stuff, so. So there is a reimbursement allowed.
Well, and that's why I bring it up, if it was hard cap, it's three and 600, then it's probably what we're having some reimbursement. But,
Yeah, I mean, on that reimbursement stuff, I mean, that works pretty good, man. You know, we go out of town and stay at a nice hotel, eat good. That's kind of like a perk, I guess, you know, being on the council, the mayor, get to go to San Antonio, chill out, you know, you can take your family with you, but, you know, you have to pay for their stuff, but, you know, all of my expenses are paid. That's kind of like a perk, though, especially at the, you know, TML convention, you know, it's some, but otherwise, you know, it's, and we had one council person, every time she get a check, she would go to Little Caesars, bring us a big pizza every month. She just donated it back. It was kind of funny. Pizza was good, though. Okay. Tom, you got anything else?
The only other thing, this is, I don't have any red lines on it, depending on which direction I want to go, is under section 307, and this is essentially, there's some ambiguity in the charter right now, because there's a provision that says city council hires and fires, and then there's another provision that says city manager hires and fires, and, you know, I generally think it's better to keep employment decisions out of the city council, you know, because that's kind of, that's a city manager's job. There's a host of reasons for that. And now I would,
The way it reads is very confusing on that point. I mean,
and this will also be in the next.
they have the ability, but only for those that they appoint,
Right.
you know.
Well, and there are certain ones that may be required, and I don't know, I haven't double checked if there's specific provisions that require some council to going to approve. But,
But, you know, right now, the city manager, you know, is responsible for the hiring and city manager and HR, but, if you got the council involved in hiring, that takes a lot of time and energy, you know, because you gotta interview people, you gotta vet them, and, you know, I think that the way they have it set up now, like, you know, Chief Broussard handles his people, and Chief Anderson, you know, because they have the time to do it, you know.
And right now, the council hires a city manager and municipal
Yeah.
judge, an associate judge. You know, and as far as salary people, those are the ones that get hired. Now, the council and the mayor appoint all the board members and you know, all that, but which is ones that they're able to hire and terminate.
that's actually why I didn't do any red lines, because as part of this, I feel like I'd like to be, but then again, there's also part of it where I'm thinking, and this is more about see through. And it's just a general comment, you know, I like to err on the side of, don't even list everything that's allowed by state law.
But when you,
get the council involved and personnel, all of this. Kind of going down the slippery slope. Because it'll come down to who like who and who, you know, and it's best to just let have a chain of command and, you know, let them do what they do.
I have your number one time, so he thought that's when the light outside, of course, every time I said it. He said, the way I look at it, the board's job is to have their hands around anything, not, have their arms around anything and not their hands in it. And it kind of keeps them looking at big picture policy stuff. And not getting into day to day.
You get into that day to day, man, it's 6 people. You know, and a lot of times on personnel, you know, you have to have the authority, you know, you might have to hire that person right then. You know, you probably, you know, sometimes you can't wait till the next month to leave, you know, you have to call a special meeting or something. But I think the way we have it going, I think it's going, you know, going the best way. You know, I always tell Scott, hey, that's your baby now, so you. Ain't that right, Scott? It's his baby.
Tommy, going back to 3.05, and Mayor, this is for you as well, but is it common, like in 305A, the mayor shall preside over the city council meetings, and then within the first quarter of the calendar year, deliver a state of the city address to the city council and the members of the public? Is that common to be in? Because I know the mayor did do a state of the city last year at the chamber, but I think that's the first time that's been done in a long time, from what I understand.
No, they've done the state of the city before.
Okay.
Yeah, they've done.
I mean, that in every year.
But I think, you know, the way it was done this year, it was a good idea. We did it at the chamber luncheon, because a lot of times, the state of the city will be done, you know, just the state of the city and the city, and you might have 10, 12 people to show up. But that gave a big, made it a lot better, you know, having it at that chamber luncheon. Going forward, I would like to continue that.
Is that first quarter partial? Is that's the thing that jumped out at me.
I was in the first quarter, wasn't it in March?
I think we did the March or
Yeah,
April.
it was in the first quarter. I think it was March.
And that makes sense. I mean, the only thing I've ever read about state of the union provisions is that you can move that line right on top of budget adoption. You know, kind of let it breathe and then have.
I just didn't know if that was common in that. And then,
I've seen the state of the city provisions, the first quarter things that jumped out. Maybe it's done like that. I don't know about it. Specifically, it makes sense. It's there because they're thinking about budget adoption. In truth, does it need to be there? No. You know, like essentially this is you can do whatever you want.
I'm okay with it.
under 3.06 vacancies, section A, I think this is a requirement for a 3-year term anyway, but such announcement of such candidacy is an automatic resignation.
Yeah.
I think for 2 years, that's a flexible, I think it's flexible, you know, for 3 years, I think that's required by law.
Yeah, that's so there's two things that are happening with three, is this where it's got those on?
It is the Kansas City.
Oh, yeah, so this is, the state constitution allows council to appoint to a vacancy only if they've adopted the charter of the region. Otherwise, you have to go to a special election. That's why it's important about it. And most often, councils prefer to go to a special election. But it's also, for every ideal situation I can think of, four that city business grinds to a halt because when they have two of them time, so then they need to have so many in the chair.
So even if they've got, if they've got a 3-year term and there's 2 years left on that term, then council can, because it's in our charter that they can appoint, they can still appoint it and not have to have an election.
Right.
I want to say the state basically without that, if you've got more than a year, you have to go to election. If it's less than a year, then you can appoint. But if it's in your charter, then you appoint on the
Yeah, I need to double check that because I know that they amended the state constitution. I think it used to be 1 year and 30 days, and they changed it to 1 year because they were overlooking something on calendar map and it was causing issues because the way their election calendars run.
But because it's in here that we appoint at any vacancy at any time, if we either resign or they run for candidacy for something else, the council can appoint and not force a special election, no matter how long that term is.
No. It's also, if it's more than a year, if it's
You
more
would
than
have
a
to
year,
have.
you have to have a special election. This only applies if it's less than a year remaining. And even then, it only applies arguably during the window, the 30-day appointment window. And that's kind of the unanswered question. I don't know that I've ever seen a case where they try to. Because then, so this, we talked about, courts can tell you what you have to do, but they can't.
This one says well, if it exceeds more than 1 year, as it, the same manner as other vacancies for such offices filled, from above it, it talks about that, the council has to report any vacancy within 30 days. And I think it's confusing myself. I know there's conditions on that whole amount of term left, more than, more or less.
I mean, I can double check it. I'm almost certain that the change, the 1 year change was changed from a year and 30 days to a year. So my gut is that if this is 1 year rather than 1 year and 30 days, which it was for a long time, then this would be in line with the current one.
So when the unexpired term of office then held shall exceed 1 year, such an applicant or such candidate shall constitute an automatic resignation of the office then held, and the vacancy thereby created shall be filled pursuant to law in the same manner as other vacancies for such office is filled. Now, does that go to the state law, or does that go to the statement above, which?
Oh, I see what you're, sorry. I see what you're.
Because the paragraph above that
Right.
basically tells you when there's a vacancy, for whatever reason, the council will appoint somebody in that position within 30 days.
Right. So state law requires an election when it's more than one, and that's what's being said on the law.
So do we need to refer maybe, or if we're changing it, clear it up to make state law?
Yeah.
Because it almost sounds like on that one, to our saying pursuant to law in the same manner as other vacancies, that kind of, so what is our practice? Well, our practice is in the paragraph before that says within 30 days we'll appoint somebody. And it may just need to be clarified, I guess. Maybe that's just one of those things we need to be more, and maybe it's, instead of by pursuant to law, state law in this manner, or something, I don't know, but.
Yeah, and it's a, this is basically right from the Constitution provision.
But then the first paragraph is also your local law. And it's part of our charter, so it's hard. So maybe the first paragraph needs to be clarified. Maybe that's where we just need to put, unless it's more than a year, then you must follow state law or something. Because the term the vacancy that is open, if it's more than a year, cannot just be appointed. It has to go to a special election.
That makes sense.
Because A is basically just talking about you running for office. The first paragraph is any kind of vacancy. You have 30, the council has 30 days to fill it and appoint somebody. But if we have a 3-year term, and if it's more than a year left, then you have to go to an election. But that's not what that is saying. There's more than 1 year term, or? I said, but according to this, it's not required unless the right for the candidacy.
Right.
Which is what we probably need to clear this
Well, and
first
we can
paragraph.
always go to a special election. Like that's, it's the discretionary act. But special elections kind of based on longer terms.
We had, we did some couple of years ago. We had to appoint a mayor. It went pretty smooth. Okay.
How long was his term? How long was the term left on they appointed the mayor?
I think it was a year. Yes, sir, it was a year.
Yeah, sometimes we may need to do some clarification. Don't look at it.
Okay. Let's try to wrap this up here by 8. God, I know this Tanya gonna have a long day. What you got? You gone? Oh,
That's
I
the ladies'
was gonna say,
room.
yeah.
Do we be all right?
I was gonna say, Miss Tanya just skipped out on me. You get out of here before 8.
Is 308 common language for council members and or request to recall meetings?
Well, I think on 308, I mean, I think the one thing we need to talk about too is not just how they can call meetings, but also maybe put in the details more how you can add an agenda item as well. Poor Chuck, you're the only one left, so you can.
You can make all decisions, but all we need is
Okay. All right, let's go back to the salary.
Yeah, we temporarily lost the quorum, so now. There are no-
We're really screwed now, yeah, we can have that now.
So that, and just, by the way, this, most of this provision is pretty standard. Sometimes I see something a little more vague on regular meetings. Sometimes I see, more specific, two a month, but, and that's, to me, that's all it is. In terms of agenda process, I would think that it would be a good idea to include something about just the general state of the city. Adopt its own policy. I mean, you don't even need to include it, that can always be done. And I don't know that I would put process requirements in the charter, because it could be that if they can find something wrong and maybe something else is more convenient, but now you're burdened by language in the charter that has to go to vote.
Is that more like a governing order, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, city council can currently adopt whatever process it wants for meetings, agenda items, anything. The only thing that would be problematic in this is if it's, is this read to say they're limited to one regular meeting a month? I think you could probably add some at the beginning of the year and do it ahead of time. That would be common sense maybe.
Another question on 3.8 that I had is, I guess the sentence above, the second to the last sentence, where it says, except that the city council may designate another place for such meetings after publishing a notice thereof in one issue of a paper in general circulation in the city of Cleveland. We don't, I mean, if we want to hold a meeting at the Civic Center, if we want to have a special meeting, our retreat was at the ISD, that we have to put that in the newspaper, that's not been done.
No, you
Recently.
you asked me what I would do, I'd take that out.
So I'll say I think that's, yeah.
Take it out, in fact, I'd probably take out any, and I can't remember if there's a specific newspaper provision later, but that's the other thing, it's just, newspaper provisions are gonna age very, very poorly in the upcoming legislative sessions, because I have a feeling they're gonna talk about that with enough. Like, you don't wanna be burdened by, to be honest with you, I think, I know some cities are struggling with finding a newspaper. But it's not, it may be less y'all's issue here, but, yeah, it's gonna be more and more difficult as we have fewer and fewer.
Well, even for us, I mean, we've got one newspaper, but, it's a weekly newspaper, so we have to do them on Tuesday, get bring on Thursday, if we're trying to call a meeting, that just, I agree, just take that, remove that completely, just, council may designate another place for such meetings, period. But then you have the Open Meetings Act that requires you to post it within 72 hours. You have to post it here where it's regularly posted. You have to post it at the location of meetings on behalf. Those are easy enough to do. But
Where it says 2 members can call for special call, you need to increase that as well. So we just want to move like send on 3 orders.
That's a good question. And that's city's preference, I mean,
you almost have to have 4 to get a majority of them.
Right.
You have to have 4 people to just 2. Because even 2 is not a majority, even with the current 5.
Right.
Well, you're still below them. So this means you have to have a second, basically. Somebody else has to agree. The mayor by himself, myself, or any 2 council members can call.
and then, it could be, my gut is, three would be, that may be the only place I can move it to, because I'm not crazy about requiring the majority call a meeting just because of the, well, the whole open meetings issue.
Walking forward.
And now, that's not an issue here, frankly, but I see it all the time. It's not an issue here because y'all have it set up right. It flows through Alice, and then she reaches out to see if there's a second, whatever, and that insulates everyone from talking to each other about these things. I see it more often than not when we don't have those policies in place. Do we have a meeting, and then 20 minutes later, they're in the weeds on the agenda item, and then we discuss the meeting. So I would err on the side of not lifting it to the majority, but three seems reasonable.
Well, that's up to y'all, man.
Yeah, I would say three.
We're just bringing discussion. Things to consider.
Okay.
Under 3.7, I also have, under K, I think this maybe we might want to do some tweaking, clarification. It talks about, council fixes the salary and compensation of the city officer and employees. You know, typically we approve a budget every year. We've got a pay grade, we've got, classifications. And the council adopts that with our budget every year. Throughout the year, we bring in people and hire and pay their salaries based on a matrix, and we'll put them through the matrix based on their years of service, their education, everything else, and we set the salary for that individual throughout the whole year as we're hiring people. So I don't know if that may be, you know, where they fix the salaries and compensation for city officers and employees. I don't know if that may need a clarification that they set the overall, but then city manager sets the individual maybe within those guidelines and criteria. Because I'm not taking every single person that we hire to council to get them to approve a salary.
No, right. And
They're approving a budget and a salary range within that we operate under. But I'm not bringing every single one of these employees that we hire to council. Can we pay this salary? I'll lose them.
And that's one of the things I mentioned earlier, that, so C through Q, and I would certainly double check this before, double check every one of these before I recommend it. But there's a part of me that thinks this section entirely should be something to the effect of, all powers within the authority of Homer City and all the state constitution. Like, I don't know that there's anything in here that isn't presumed to be under the authority.
Hey, I'm all for it. Yeah, because even going down to one of the things that was on P, I don't even know if that's even relevant anymore, you know. Define nuisance and prohibit the same within the city and outside the city limits for a distance of 5,000 feet. I don't know if that's even the right number anymore. And then inspect, you know, dairies, slaughter pens, slaughterhouses, inside and outside the city limits, from which million of meat and or milk is furnished, and the habits of this, I mean, like going, that's not even relevant anymore. So, I mean, but I like what you're saying, just kind of almost get rid of this whole section and
I say all
go.
this, I totally see the value of it on both sides, because there's that balance of, I'm reading this thinking, is it not legally required? Who cares? That's presumed, of course it would. But there's also the member of the public reading it. This is a helpful document to identify things. So it's kind of that balance between providing information and not inadvertently constricting the limiting. I mean, we could add, I've read a provision recently about the authority of the mayor. During a state of disaster, you could shut down a ball if you can. that seems like an oddly specific statute that is not aged very well, because of all the things that are in the code about the mayor's authority to do it. It's like address disasters and shut down ballrooms if it's banned. And it's like, I don't know that we should put that in, but that's kind of the same thing.
Well, I think we can kind of keep these, and go over some stuff on here, I guess we can go over. And it's about 8 o'clock, no time yet. And Scott and Alice, and I know Emilio, it's been a long day. I think we got a lot done, and I'm gonna take this and read over it, and maybe some other stuff on there we might want. But I thank Chuck, and I also thank Ms. Tony for donating your time, to help us. And, this might seem to be kind of, but going forward though, I mean, say 10 years from now, people will be, what? But it's like I said, I just want to thank everybody. And what's the schedule for the next meeting?
It'll be next month,
Okay.
the Monday before the next council meeting.
Okay, yeah, so we still got some more time on this. And in the meantime, we can kind of think of some suggestions or something we want to, Well, okay, everybody, thank you for coming, and I say let's go home. Be careful.